Kira Chun stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive docking bay. The Galactic Peacekeeping Academy sat on Harmony 7, a space station so large it had its own artificial gravity and weather systems. She had never seen anything like it. Other new students moved through the crowds with their families. The Savari looked like tall, thin people made of living crystal. When they walked, their bodies made soft chiming sounds. Their parents spoke in whispers, their voices like distant bells. The Nethri floated in special suits filled with colorful gas. When they were happy, they turned bright yellow. When nervous, they shifted to pale blue. Right now, most of them were pale blue. The Veloth looked almost human, except for their silver eyes that seemed to glow. They stood perfectly straight and barely spoke out loud. Kira knew they talked to each other with their minds instead of words. Kira was alone. Earth was too far away for her parents to come. Besides, the trip cost more money than her family had. She carried one small bag with everything she owned. Her acceptance letter was folded carefully in her pocket. She had read it so many times the paper was getting soft on. As she walked toward the registration desk, conversation stopped. Other students stared at her. Some pointed. She heard whispers in languages she could not understand, but their tone was clear enough. They were afraid. She knew why. Her file would say she came from Earth, a Class 12 Deathworld. Most beings in the galaxy lived on safe, quiet planets with gentle weather and friendly animals. Earth was different. Earth had hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and winter storms that could kill you. The animals were dangerous too. Even Earth's plants could poison. You humans had to become tough to survive on Earth. This made other species nervous. Kira got her room, assignment and class schedule from a nervous Savari clerk who barely looked at her. Her room was small but clean, with a window that looked out at the stars. She put away her few belongings and studied her schedule. Her first class was combat theory with instructor Zelenoth. Kira had heard of him. He was a famous Veloth war hero who had won many battles. The other students seemed to respect him, but also fear him a little. The classroom was full when Kira arrived. She took a seat in the back corner. The other students glanced at her, then quickly looked away. The room was built for different types of beings. Some seats had special breathing equipment for the Nethri. Others had soft cushions for species with delicate bones. Instructor Zelenoth walked into the room like he owned it. He was tall, even for a Veloth, with silver hair and those glowing silver eyes. He wore a dark uniform covered with medals. When he looked at the class, Kira felt something touch her mind, like cold fingers brushing against her thoughts. "Welcome to combat theory," he said. His voice was smooth but cold. "Here you will learn that fighting is not about strength or speed. It is about control. Control of yourself, control of the situation, and control of your enemy." His eyes found Kira in the back corner. "Some of you come from worlds where violence is common. You think this makes you strong. You are wrong. True strength comes from discipline and intelligence, not from animal instincts." Kira felt her face get hot. She knew he was talking about her, about humans, about Earth. "Let me demonstrate," Zelenoth continued. He walked closer to Kira's desk. "Miss Chun, I believe? From Earth?" "Yes, sir," Kira said. "Earth. A world so violent that your people fight each other when they are not fighting the planet itself. Tell me, Miss Chun, how do you control your violent nature?" The touch in her mind got stronger. Suddenly, Kira saw images that were not her own. She saw her classmates dying in terrible ways. She saw Earth burning, its cities destroyed. She saw her family screaming in pain. She knew these images were not real. They came from Zelenoth's mind, pushed into hers. But they felt real. Her heart started beating faster. Her hands began to shake. The desk under her hands felt like it might crack. "Interesting," Zelenoth said, pushing harder with his mind. "Your emotional control seems quite poor. Perhaps Deathworlders are too unstable for peacekeeping work." The images got worse. Now she saw herself hurting her classmates, becoming the monster that Zelenoth clearly thought she was. Her anger built like a fire in her chest. She wanted to stand up. She wanted to show him what a real Deathworlder could do, but she also knew that was exactly what he wanted. He wanted her to lose control. He wanted her to prove his point about humans being dangerous and unfit for this academy. Kira gripped the edge of her desk harder. The metal began to bend under her fingers. She could feel every pair of eyes in the room watching her, waiting to see what she would do. "Please," she said through her teeth, her voice tight with the effort of staying still. "Ask me to stay calm." Zelenoth raised one eyebrow. He looked surprised, but also amused. "Very well, Primitive. Stay calm." Kira took a long, slow breath. The images were still in her head, but now she had permission. She had been asked to stay calm. That gave her a choice. She let go of the desk and lifted her hand. Then she brought her fist down hard on the table in front of her. The table exploded. The reinforced composite material was designed to handle almost anything. It could survive small explosions, energy blasts, even acid. But it could not survive the focused impact of a human fist driven by controlled anger. Pieces of the table scattered across the floor. The sound echoed through the silent classroom like a gunshot. Every student sat frozen, staring at the destruction. Kira sat back in her chair. Her hand hurt, but not badly. She looked up at Zelenoth, who stood with his mouth open. "There," she said quietly. "I stayed calm. I broke the table, not you." The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then Zelenoth stepped back, his silver eyes wide with something that might have been respect or might have been fear. "Class dismissed," he said. By dinner time, everyone on the station knew about the broken table. The story spread faster than Kira had expected. She walked into the dining hall and felt hundreds of eyes watching her. Conversations stopped when she passed. Students moved out of her way without even thinking about it. Kira got her food and looked for somewhere to sit. Every table seemed to have invisible walls around it. When she approached, students would suddenly find reasons to leave. She finally sat alone at a small table near the windows. She tried to eat, but the food tasted like nothing. This was not how she had imagined her first day would go. She had wanted to make friends, to prove that humans could work well with other species. Instead, she had scared everyone. "Miss Chun?" Kira looked up to see a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and short gray hair. She wore the uniform of an academy instructor, but with different markings than Kira had seen before. "I am Dr. Myra Deshen," the woman said. "May I sit with you?" "Sure," Kira said. She was grateful for any company, even if it was probably just another instructor who wanted to lecture her about violence. Dr. Deshen sat down across from her. She had a cup of tea and a small sandwich. "I study how different species think and feel," she said. "It is called xenopsychology. I wanted to talk to you about what happened in class today." Kira put down her fork. "I suppose you think I am dangerous too." "Actually, no," Dr. Deshen said. "I think you showed remarkable control. I have studied the security footage from your class. I also looked at the biometric readings from your student monitoring device. Every student wore a small device that tracked their health and stress levels." Kira had forgotten about hers. "The readings show that you were fighting much stronger impulses than what you actually did," Dr. Deshen continued. "Most humans in your situation would have attacked Instructor Zelenoth directly. You chose to hit an object instead. That shows discipline. Tell that to everyone else," Kira said, looking around the dining hall. "They all think I am a monster. They are scared because they do not understand, Dr. Deshan said. Your species is new to them. They have heard stories about Deathworlders, but they have never seen one. Fear of the unknown is normal. What kind of stories? Kira asked. Dr. Deshan sipped her tea. Exaggerated ones, mostly. Stories about humans who can tear through metal with their bare hands, who can survive in environments that would kill other beings, who feel no pain. Some of these stories are based on truth, but they miss the important parts. What important parts? That humans choose to be gentle, that your strength comes with wisdom, that you protect others, not just yourselves. Dr. Deshan smiled. I have been hoping for years that a human would come to this academy. I wanted to see if my theories were correct. What theories? That species from dangerous worlds make the best peacekeepers, precisely because they understand the cost of violence. They know when it is necessary and when it is not. Kira thought about this. Instructor Zelenoth does not seem to agree. Instructor Zelenoth has never been wrong before, Dr. Deshan said. Today, you surprised him. That does not happen often. The faculty is very interested in you now. Over the following days, Kira began to settle into academy life. Her classes were challenging but interesting. She studied galactic law, conflict resolution, and species interaction protocols. She learned about different cultures and how to communicate with beings who thought in completely different ways than humans. Physical training was where she really stood out. The Academy's combat simulator was designed to challenge the fastest and strongest species in known space. It created holographic enemies that moved like lightning and hit like hammers. Most students struggled to keep up with the basic settings. Kira not only kept up with the advanced levels, she did things the programmers had never seen before. She improvised tactics that confused the system's artificial intelligence. She used her environment in ways that other species never thought of. How did you know to use the wall like that? Asked Zeph, a Savari student who had started talking to her after seeing her in action. Humans climb, Kira explained. We use our whole environment, not just the floor. On Earth, everything is three-dimensional. Up and down matter as much as left and right. Fascinating, said Nira, a Netheri who glowed bright orange when excited. Your species thinks in layers. I guess so, Kira said. We had to. On Earth, threats can come from any direction. It was during one of these training sessions that everything changed. A group of Savari students had been practicing in a gravity chamber when something went wrong. The artificial gravity system malfunctioned, creating dangerous fields that could crush their delicate crystalline bones. The safety protocols should have activated immediately, but they failed. The chamber's door was locked, and the control systems were not responding. The trapped students were caught in gravity fields that increased and decreased without warning. Other instructors arrived and began arguing about the safest way to proceed. They talked about calling technical teams and following emergency procedures. Meanwhile, the Savari students inside were crying for help as the gravity fields grew stronger. Kira did not wait for debates or procedures. She grabbed the door with both hands and pulled. The reinforced metal, designed to withstand explosive decompression and energy blasts, came apart like paper. Alarms started screaming as the station's atmosphere rushed to equalize the pressure difference. Kira dove into the chamber. The gravity fields hit her like invisible hammers, but her body absorbed the punishment that would have shattered Savari bones. She grabbed the 3 trapped students and carried them out just as the chamber's gravity generator overloaded. The explosion would have killed anyone still inside. Instead, Kira stood in the hallway with 3 grateful Savari students in her arms and radiation detectors showing levels that should have been lethal to most species. Are you hurt? Dr. Deshan asked, running up with a medical team. No, Kira said, setting down the students gently. Are they okay? The Savari students were shaken, but unharmed. They looked at Kira with something new in their crystalline eyes. Not fear, respect. "Thank you," Zeph whispered, his voice chiming like small bells. "You saved us." "Of course I did," Kira said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "That is what you do when people are in trouble." Word of the rescue spread even faster than the story of the broken table. But this time, the whispers were different. Students began to understand that Kira's strength was not just for destruction. It was for protection. However, not everyone was pleased with this development. Admiral Karth, a traditionalist Veloth who believed in the old ways, arrived at the academy 3 days later. He had heard about the human student and was not happy about what he had heard. "Deathworlders have no place in peacekeeping," he told the faculty at an emergency meeting. "They are too unpredictable, too violent. This incident proves that they will always choose action over thought." Dr. Deshen disagreed. "She saved 3 lives while others were still debating procedures. She destroyed Academy property and violated safety protocols," Admiral Korath replied. "What happens when she decides that a person is the problem instead of a door?" The debate continued late into the night. Kira knew about it because the whole station was talking about her again. Some students supported her, others agreed with Admiral Korath. She was becoming a symbol in a fight she had never wanted to join. But the real test was still coming. Admiral Korath called all the final year students to the main assembly hall. He stood at the podium like a statue, his silver eyes scanning the crowd. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. "You will face a crisis leadership assessment," he announced. "Each of you will command a team during simulated emergencies. This test will show us who has the wisdom to lead and who does not." Kira sat with the other students, listening carefully. She knew this was about more than just a test. Admiral Korath had made it clear that he did not want humans at the academy. This was his chance to prove his point. "The scenarios are designed to be nearly impossible," the Admiral continued. "You are not expected to succeed perfectly. You are expected to learn humility and the importance of knowing when to surrender." Dr. Deshen, sitting with the other faculty, looked worried. She caught Kira's eye and gave her a small nod of encouragement. "Miss Chun," Admiral Korath said, his eyes finding her in the crowd. "You will go first." Of course, she would. Kira stood up and walked to the front of the hall. The other students watched in silence. Some looked sympathetic, others curious. A few seemed glad it was not them. "Your team will consist of Cadet Zeph of the Savari, Cadet Nira of the Netheri, Cadet Vex of the Veloth, and Cadet Thorn of the Karani." Admiral Korath announced that Kira knew these students. Zeph was grateful to her for the rescue, but he was still nervous around her. Nira was friendly, but easily frightened. Vex had barely spoken to her since she arrived. Thorn, a large reptilian being from a warrior culture, had made it clear that he thought humans were weak pretenders. "Your scenario," Admiral Korath said, "is a hostage situation on Station Beta 9. Terrorists have taken control of a civilian area. There are families trapped inside, including children from multiple species. The terrorists have demanded that all peacekeepers withdraw, or they will begin killing hostages." Kira nodded. It sounded difficult but not impossible. "You will have access to standard peacekeeping equipment and a team of 20 officers. The simulation will begin in 1 hour. Use that time to prepare." Admiral Korath smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Remember, Miss Chun, this test is about leadership and wisdom, not about force." Kira gathered her team in a small briefing room. The 4 cadets sat around a table, looking at the mission data on their tablets. The situation was worse than Admiral Korath had described. "Look at this," Zeph said, his crystalline fingers tapping nervously on his tablet. The terrorists are not just holding the civilians. They are using them as human shields. As living shields. The station layout makes a direct assault impossible, Vex added, his silver eyes glowing as he studied the tactical data. Too many civilians would die. And look at this intelligence report, Naira said, her gaseous form shifting to a worried blue color. The terrorists have been trained in psychological warfare. They specialize in breaking the morale of their enemies. Thorn, the Qurani, looked up from his tablet with disgust. This is impossible. The scenario is designed for failure. We are supposed to learn that some situations cannot be won. Kira studied the data more carefully. Something felt wrong about the whole setup. The terrorists were too well prepared, their positions too perfect. It was almost like someone had designed the scenario specifically to be unwinnable. Then she saw it. Hidden in the technical specifications was a note about enhanced psychological warfare. Protocols. The system would use advanced telepathic simulation to attack the team. Leader's mental state during the mission. Admiral Korath had rigged the test. He was going to try to make her lose control by filling her mind with horrible images, just like Instructor Zelenoth had done on her first day. But this time, it would be worse. This time, her team would be watching when she failed. "We can do this," Kira said quietly. "How?" Thorn demanded. "The situation is impossible." "Maybe," Kira said. "But impossible does not mean we should not try. And I have an idea." She turned to her team. "Each of you has abilities that I do not have. Zeph, your people can sense structural weaknesses in buildings. Nira, your species can move through spaces that would be too small for others. Vex, you can communicate telepathically. Thorn, your people are experts at intimidation tactics. So?" Thorn asked. "So we use what makes us different instead of trying to be the same," Kira said. "The terrorists expect us to attack like a standard peacekeeping force. We will not give them what they expect." "What about the psychological warfare?" Vex asked. "The reports say the terrorists will try to break your mental state." "Let them try," Kira said. "But I need you all to understand something. I am going to get angry during this mission. Very angry. That is what they want. But my anger will not be directed at you or at the mission. It will be directed at the people who hurt innocent families." "How is that supposed to help?" Nira asked, her form shifting to confused purple. "Because anger can be useful," Kira said. "On Earth, we learned that anger at injustice makes you fight harder to protect people. The key is to aim it at the right target." The simulation began in the Academy's holographic training center. The room transformed into a perfect copy of Station Beta 9. Kira could smell the recycled air, hear the hum of life support systems, even feel the artificial gravity pulling at her feet. Her team of 20 officers waited for orders. They were holographic constructs, but they looked and acted like real people from different species. Some looked nervous, others eager. "Terrorist leader is demanding to speak with you," reported the communications officer. A holographic Savari with lieutenant's stripes. "Put him through," Kira said. The main screen flickered, showing a masked figure standing behind a group of frightened civilians. Kira could see families huddled together, children crying, parents trying to comfort them. "Surrender now," the terrorist said, "or watch them die." As he spoke, images flooded into Kira's mind. She saw the civilians being tortured, saw her own team members dying in horrible ways, saw herself failing everyone who depended on her. The psychological attack was stronger than anything Instructor Zelenoth had used. Her hands began to shake. Her vision blurred with rage. The holographic officers looked at her with concern as her breathing became faster and heavier. "Commander?" Zeph asked quietly. "Are you all right?" Kira took a deep breath. She looked at her team, these 4 cadets who had been chosen specifically because they doubted her. They were watching her, waiting to see if she would lose control like Admiral Korath expected. Instead, she smiled. "I am perfectly fine," she said. "In fact, I am exactly where I need to be. Zeph, I need you to scan the station structure and find me the weak points in the terrorist positions. Nira, you are going to infiltrate their communications. Vex, you're going to help me turn their psychological weapons against them. And Thorn, you're going to help me convince them that they picked the wrong human to mess with. You have a plan?" Vex asked. "I have a plan," Kira confirmed. "And it starts with me getting very, very angry." The psychological attacks continued, filling her mind with images of failure and death. But instead of fighting the anger, Kira embraced it. She let it fuel her determination. She let it sharpen her focus, and then she began to fight back. The mission had ended with something no one expected: complete success. All hostages rescued, all terrorists captured, 0 casualties. It was the first time in 50 years that anyone had achieved a perfect score on that particular scenario. Admiral Korath stood in the simulation control room, staring at the results on his screen. His silver eyes were cold with anger. "This is impossible," he said to the technicians. "Check for system errors." "We have checked 3 times, sir," the head technician replied nervously. "There are no errors." The human cadet and her team achieved every objective. "Then she cheated?" Admiral Korath said firmly. "No one succeeds at that scenario. It was designed to be unwinnable." The news of Kira's success spread through the academy like wildfire. Students who had been afraid of her began to see her differently. The 4 cadets on her team told everyone who would listen about how she had turned her anger into a weapon against injustice while keeping them all safe. But Admiral Korath was not finished. 3 days later, formal charges were filed against Kira Chun. She was accused of using unauthorized methods and violating academy protocols. A disciplinary hearing was scheduled. Kira sat in her small room, reading the official documents. Dr. Deshan had offered to help her prepare, but Kira was not sure how to defend herself against accusations of being too good at something. The hearing was held in the academy's main courtroom. 5 senior officers sat at a long table, with Admiral Korath presenting the case against her. Dr. Deshan sat at a smaller table as Kira's advisor. The defendant achieved impossible results through methods that cannot be explained, Admiral Korath began. Her performance was beyond the capabilities of any known species. This suggests either system tampering or the use of prohibited enhancements. What prohibited enhancements? Dr. Deshan asked. Unknown, Admiral Korath admitted. But the alternative is that humans are fundamentally different from every other species in ways that make them unsuitable for peacekeeping work. Please explain, said Captain Morix. The senior officer leading the hearing, Admiral Korath, activated a holographic display showing brain scans and biometric data. During the simulation, the defendant's stress levels were higher than anything we have ever recorded. Her neurological activity showed patterns consistent with extreme rage. Yet she maintained perfect tactical control. This is impossible for any rational being. Perhaps, Dr. Deshan said, standing up, it is time we discussed what we really know about human psychology. She activated her own holographic display. For the past 20 years, I have studied Earth and its people. What I found challenges every assumption we have made about Deathworlder species. The display showed images of Earth, its storms, earthquakes, dangerous animals, and violent weather. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They should have become simple predators, focused only on survival. Instead, they became something unprecedented, which is Captain Morix asked. A species that learned to transform destructive emotions into protective instincts, Dr. Deshan explained. Look at these recordings from Miss Chun's simulation. The holographic display showed Kira during the hostage rescue. Her face was tight with controlled rage, but her movements were precise and careful. When she spoke to civilians, her voice was gentle. When she confronted terrorists, it was like watching a force of nature wrapped in discipline. She was not suppressing her anger, Dr. Deshan continued. She was using it. Human anger at injustice becomes a drive to protect others. Their fear becomes heightened awareness. Their aggression becomes tactical precision. They have evolved to turn their darkest emotions into tools for protecting their community. This is speculation, Admiral Korath interrupted. You have no proof that humans can truly control their violent nature. Actually, I do, Dr. Deshan said. Miss Chun, would you please join me? Kira stood and walked to the front of the courtroom. She had been quiet during the hearing, but now all eyes were on her. Miss Chun, Dr. Deshan said, please tell the court what you were feeling during the simulation. I was angry, Kira said simply. Angrier than I have ever been in my life. The psychological attacks were showing me images of children being hurt, of my team dying, of everything going wrong. Part of me wanted to tear the terrorists apart with my bare hands. Several officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But you did not, Dr. Deshan said. No, Kira said. Because my anger was not about wanting to hurt people. It was about wanting to stop people from being hurt. There's a difference. Explain this difference, Captain Morix said. Kira thought for a moment. When humans get angry at injustice, we do not lose control. We gain focus. Every human understands this, but maybe other species do not. We learned on Earth that sometimes you have to be willing to fight in order to protect peace. Admiral Korath stood up. This is exactly what I am talking about. Humans are inherently violent. They glorify conflict. No, Kira said, turning to face him directly. We understand conflict. We understand that sometimes bad people will hurt innocent ones, and when that happens, someone has to stand between them. We volunteer for that job because we know the cost. And what cost is that? Admiral Korath demanded. The cost of carrying that anger, Kira said quietly. The cost of being ready to do terrible things if we have to, so that others never have to. The cost of being the ones that others fear, so that others can sleep safely. The courtroom was silent. Kira looked at the 5 officers judging her, then back at Admiral Korath. You want proof that humans can control their violent nature? She asked. Admiral, I could end you before your telepathy even registered the threat. Every human could. We are not dangerous because we are out of control. We are dangerous because we choose every second not to be. That choice is what makes us good peacekeepers. She took a step closer to Admiral Korath, who instinctively stepped back. The fact that you are still breathing should be all the proof you need, she said. The officers deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, Captain Morix looked tired but resolved. The charges against Cadet Chen are dismissed, he announced. Furthermore, this hearing has revealed important information about human psychology that the Academy needs to study further. Admiral Korath started to protest, but Captain Morix held up a hand. Admiral, your concerns about Deathworlder species were reasonable given our lack of information. But the evidence suggests that humans may be uniquely qualified for peacekeeping work, precisely because they understand the true cost of violence. After the hearing, Admiral Korath approached Kira in the hallway. She tensed, expecting another confrontation. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. And an explanation, sir? 50 years ago, I lost my entire unit to a Deathworlder species that had no concept of restraint. They killed for pleasure, not protection. When I heard that humans were coming to the academy, I assumed they would be the same. They were not human, Kira said. No, they were not, but I let my fear blind me to the differences. Admiral Korath looked older than he had at the beginning of the hearing. You have taught me something important today. True strength is not about power. It is about choosing when to use that power. My grandmother used to say that the strongest person in the room is the one who does not need to prove it, Kira said. Admiral Korath almost smiled. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. She also said that the best way to win a fight is to make sure it never starts. And if it does start, then you end it quickly, with as little harm as possible. Admiral Korath nodded slowly. Perhaps it is time for this old Veloth to learn some new ideas about leadership. As news of the hearing spread, something changed at the academy. Students began to see Kira not as a dangerous Deathworlder, but as someone who had mastered the art of channeling strength into protection. Her approach to problem-solving became a model for others to study, but the real test was still coming. Graduation was only a few months away, and Kira would soon face her first real assignment as a peacekeeper. Everything she had learned at the academy was about to be put to the ultimate test in the real galaxy. Graduation day arrived with the kind of ceremony that the Galactic Peacekeeping Academy was famous for. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered to watch their children become officers. The Great Hall was filled with beings of every shape and size, all united in their pride. Kira stood with her graduating class, wearing the blue and silver uniform of a new peacekeeper. The months since her hearing had changed everything. Students no longer avoided her in the hallways. Instead, many sought her out for advice and training. Admiral Korath, now one of her strongest supporters, stood at the podium to present the awards. He had spent the past months working with Dr. Desham to develop new training methods based on human emotional regulation techniques. This year's recipient of the Harmony Star, Admiral Korath announced, is Cadet Kira Chun of Earth. She has demonstrated exceptional ability to bridge differences between species and has contributed significantly to our understanding of effective peacekeeping. The applause was thunderous. Kira walked to the stage, still somewhat surprised by how much had changed. 6 months ago, these same beings had whispered about her in fear. Now, they cheered for her. Miss Chun, Admiral Korath said as he presented the medal, your thesis on channeling intensity, Deathworlder, psychology, and peacekeeping has been approved as required reading for all future cadets. Kira accepted the medal with gratitude. She looked out at the audience and saw her teammates from the simulation, Zeph, Nira, Vex, and even Thorn. They were all smiling at her, no longer the reluctant partners they had been during that first mission. After graduation, Kira received her first assignment. She would be posted to the Frontier Zone, a region of space where traditional peacekeeping methods had failed repeatedly. 3 different species were locked in a conflict that had been going on for over a decade. Her team consisted of volunteers from her graduating class. Word had spread that serving under the human commander was the most requested assignment among new officers. They wanted to learn her methods, to see how she turned emotional intensity into effective leadership. The conflict zone was everything the reports had said and worse. The Keth, the Morvani, and the Telex had been fighting over mining rights to a series of asteroid belts. What started as a legal dispute had escalated into open warfare. Hundreds of civilians had been caught in the crossfire. Previous peacekeeping missions had tried negotiation, economic pressure, and even military intervention. Nothing had worked. The 3 species seemed determined to fight until one side was completely defeated. Kira arrived with her team on the neutral station that served as the peacekeeping headquarters. The previous commander, experienced Veloth named Captain Nerix, briefed her on the situation. They refuse to talk to each other, Captain Nerix explained. Every time we arrange meetings, someone starts shooting. We have tried everything. Have you tried getting angry? Kira asked. Angry? Captain Nerix looked confused. Peacekeepers maintain emotional neutrality. That is basic training. Maybe that is the problem, Kira said. Over the next several days, Kira studied the conflict from every angle. She read reports, watched recordings of failed negotiations, and interviewed refugees from all three species. What she found made her genuinely angry. The war was not really about mining rights. It was about three groups of people who had been manipulated by their own leaders into hating each other. Families were being destroyed for the profit of a few powerful individuals who were safely far away from the fighting. This ends now, Kira told her team. How? Asked Zeph, who had volunteered to serve under her command. His crystalline features chimed softly with concern. No one will even sit in the same room. Then we make them want to, Kira said. Instead of calling for another formal negotiation, Kira did something unprecedented. She requested a meeting with the military commanders of all three sides, but not in a conference room. She asked them to meet her on the medical station, where the wounded from all three species were being treated. You want to hold peace talks in a hospital? Asked Commander Thale of the Keth forces. I want to hold reality talks in a hospital, Kira corrected. I want you to see what your war actually costs. The three commanders arrived expecting another pointless diplomatic session. Instead, Kira led them through the medical wards. She showed them children who had lost parents, parents who had lost children, soldiers from all three sides lying in beds next to each other. This is what you are fighting for, Kira said, her voice tight with controlled anger. This is the great victory you are all working toward. Look at it. Commander Thale, a proud warrior with scales like armor, stared at a Telex child who had lost both legs in a bombing. This was not our target, he said quietly. But it was your bomb, Kira replied. And that Keth grandmother over there died because of a Morvani missile that was aimed at a military depot. And those Morvani miners were killed when a Telex ship mistook their transport for a warship. She turned to face all three commanders. You want to know what makes me angry? It is not the fighting. Fighting sometimes has a purpose. What makes me angry is waste. You are wasting lives for something that could be solved with 20 minutes of honest conversation. You do not understand the complexities of the situation, said Commander Voss of the Morvani. I understand that three groups of miners are killing each other while their leaders count profits, Kira said. I understand that none of you have children fighting in this war. I understand that all of you know this war serves no real purpose anymore, but you are too proud to admit it. Her anger was becoming visible now. The air around her seemed to vibrate with controlled intensity, but instead of being frightening, it was inspiring. Her fury was clearly directed at the waste and senselessness of the conflict, not at the commanders themselves. So here is what we are going to do, Kira continued. You are going to sit down at that table over there, next to the children you have been orphaning, and you are going to work out a mining schedule that lets everyone make a living. If you refuse, I will personally make sure that every family in this hospital knows exactly which of your decisions put their loved ones here. You threaten us? Asked Commander Drex of the Telex. I promise you, Kira said. The only question is whether you want to be remembered as the leaders who ended a pointless war or as the ones who were too stubborn to save their own people. The negotiations took 6 hours. 6 hours to solve a conflict that had raged for over a decade. The solution was remarkably simple. Shared mining rights, rotating schedules, and joint ventures that would benefit all three species more than fighting ever could. When news of the peace agreement reached the Academy, it caused a sensation. A first-year officer had succeeded where seasoned diplomats had failed. The key had been her willingness to channel her anger at injustice into moral clarity. Dr. Deshan published a new paper called The Therapeutic Use of Righteous Anger in Conflict Resolution. It became one of the most downloaded academic papers in galactic history. 2 years later, Kira returned to the academy as an instructor. Her first class was a mix of species, including 3 new human cadets who had been inspired by her example to join the peacekeepers. She stood in the same classroom where instructor Zelenoth had once tried to break her spirit. The desk where she had shattered that table had been replaced, but there was a small plaque on the wall marking the spot. It read, "Sometimes the right choice requires the strength to break things that need breaking." "Welcome to Advanced Conflict Resolution," Kira said to her new students. "I am Commander Chun. Before we begin, I want to establish something important. This class is not about avoiding emotions. It is about using them wisely." A nervous Savari student raised his hand. "Commander, is it true that humans feel anger more intensely than other species?" "We feel it differently," Kira corrected. "We have learned to distinguish between anger at people and anger at injustice. The first kind destroys. The second kind protects. How do you tell the difference?" asked a Netheri student, her gaseous form shifting to curious yellow. "Ask yourself what you want the anger to accomplish," Kira explained. "Do you want to hurt someone because they made you feel bad? That is selfish anger, and it will make you a poor peacekeeper. Or do you want to stop innocent people from being hurt? That is righteous anger, and it will make you a force for good in the galaxy." She looked around the classroom at the eager faces. Today, a young Savari accidentally broke a piece of equipment during stress training. He was terrified that he would be punished. "Do you know what I told him?" The students shook their heads. "I told him not to worry. Breaking things is not the problem. Breaking people is. As long as you know the difference, you will do fine." At the back of the classroom, a new human cadet raised her hand. "Commander Chun, is it true that other species used to be afraid of humans?" Kira smiled. "Some still are. But they are learning that the most dangerous individuals are often the safest to be around, because they understand consequences. Fear is just respect that is not yet learned to trust." "How do we earn that trust?" the human cadet asked. "The same way I did," Kira said. "By choosing every day to use your strength to protect rather than to harm. By showing others that human intensity is not about losing control, but about caring so much that failure is not an option."